when I came in 2013, we always heard the stories about the 2012 team and how the guys believed that that would be the team to win the championship. Unfortunately, you didn't do it. But when did you know with the 2013 team that team had a real shot?
You know, we truly believe the 12 team did, but I think, and the reason we won in 13 is because of 12. And I think some of that leadership we have, some of those older guys stayed, and I mean they've had your thumb on you. I thought we had some tremendous leaders on that football team on both sides of the ball, and it was because of we won the Orange Bowl that year, won the ACC, and I'll tell you another. I always believe this: we had one other guy on that team. I believe we would have won it too, and I had to dismiss him before the year, and it was the hardest thing I ever did in my life. And I didn't want to, and he got a raw situation, but we'll talk about that later. But once that first game, you never know how, Jameis is a young quarterback. He's up there at Pitt and plays well, and we play well as a team. I knew we had a good team. Just didn't know how well the quarterback would process early, how we would gel, and how, our line, we had experience there, so I know we could lean on it. But then, in KB, that's the year KB kind of exploded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Rashad was Rashad. Rashad was always, I would say this, the most underrated. As great a player, leading receiver in ACC history, leading receiver in Florida State history, touchdowns, yards, all those things. But he was always under the radar because he was so quiet. But big players and big games, I don't know if anybody ever made more big plays than Rashad Green from his freshman year to his senior year. And that says a lot of a lot of great players. But KB emerging really because he become unguardable. And the way people had to play on defense, if we got him one-on-one, we had that KB rule. You're one-on-one, get that sucker out there. It don't take brain surgery, you know what I mean? And then Rashad on those moments, and then Freeman running, and Carlos and Wilder. I mean, and just how that whole team in the offense, and then the defense. I mean, Telvin and Joyner. I always tell people,
Joyner dog.
There's dogs and there's Joyner. You know what I'm saying? I always said that, man. That people don't understand the impact. I don't know if that guy ever got tired. And if you wanted, if you said we practiced 3 hours and said we're starting over, he'd walk up and give you a kiss, thank you, coach, and go for. I mean, he had an impact that was second to none. I always said that, and Jalen coming in making the impact he did as a freshman, Telvin at linebacker, but then you had Timmy up front. Yeah. Timmy set the standard up front.
I was telling them off the behind the scenes. It was when I came in as a linebacker. It was spring, and everybody kept having a whole bunch of MAs. And Tim just got mad one day. He's like, man, we got another MA out here. I'm knocking you out.
And legitimately, he would now.
Literally. We didn't mess up the rest of the practice, offense or defense. It was a smooth, crisp practice.
I tell you what, now, he had an impact. Then he had Eddie and Mario and Christian Jones up front and played there. And Terrence Smith was there. I mean, you forget about him, too. Yeah. I mean, how good he played. And Telvin was just a dog. Telvin was an absolute dog, too, now. I mean, but Timmy had an impact. When Timmy spoke, people listened. For sure. And when Joyner's the other one that would beat your tail.
Joyner fearless, man.
I mean, he was, oh my God. I mean, we had those leaders. And Jameis and Freeman became that on offense. Stork was a good leader. Rashad was quietly. You know what I mean? Jameis, because they always, but we had that. But those guys on defense too. I mean, I knew we had good. I didn't know how quick we could gel. And then all of a sudden, it's like bang, bang, bang. Then I knew about, our practice habits. And then about the middle of the year, I said, I really felt it. And I felt really good. I said, we got to go up to Clemson, which we knew was always a tough place to play. And if you remember, they were actually ranked ahead of us. We were like 5, they were 3.
Yeah, that was the year they were supposed to win it all.
And we beat them 51-4. They had Sam, they had everybody. Beat them 51-14 and called the dogs off at the end of the third quarter. It could have been 70. You know what I mean? And I mean, they've never been beaten like that ever before. And that team ended up being the top 5 team and won the Orange Bowl that year against Ohio State. And when you walked off that field that day and that game was going on, and I'm going, this group's different, man. I mean, it wasn't. Yeah. And it never winning. I tell you what, after we started winning, even before that, though, I watched this, because we're winning. We were dominating people, even before we went to the Clemson game. But we come back on Monday, we'd act like we had just lost. And what I'm from a point, not confidence-wise, but work ethic-wise. You know what I mean? With something to prove. I knew then, myself, I sat back and, and I'd have them things. And, of course, how practice would be. And I'd yell at them guys on defense, Telvin, get out the field. Yeah. And he'd look at me and smile, run off the field, and I'd wink at him, knowing it. He knew, but I had to do it because they do things in practice. But I knew then there was something special. Just was we going to stay healthy? And it was that lucky ball when it had to bounce, was it going to bounce right? But here's the thing. It never had to bounce right all year. I mean, people got mad at me. Said, time we sit down at halftime, game was over.
Yeah,
I mean, Jameis never saw the field. He won Heisman, threw 40-some touchdowns, never walked on the field like 4 or 5 times the second half. He could have thrown 60. I mean, it was just one of those teams. And what I always say is special about that team, though, when it did face adversity in the national championship. You know, that's the biggest comeback in national championship history. We were down 21-3 to come back and win it. And then how we faced it when it did face adversity, never blinked. And then our famous, and then remember how 2 minute used to be on Thursday. Man, 2 minute was that was those were wars on Thursday. Everybody else didn't have pads on. We had pads on going at 2 minute. I knew it would pay off. And you remember that year we'd go 2 minutes for the half and all that. Never had to go 2 minutes in the game, but that it paid off for us for a championship because of how we used to. How I think our practice habits and our 2 minute habits, how we had that down.
I don't know if you remember these moments, but I remember coming in that spring and just, kind of learning, soaking things up as the young buck. There was a moment that spring where we're scrimmaging in the stadium, and I think it was like I was supposed to go in, the twos were supposed to go in, and you kept the ones in. Wilder ran like 38 plays straight on the goal line, and we found out later he had broken ribs. 38 plays, and just the intensity of that practice, I was like, yo, this team could be something. But then there was another moment.
You're right.
In fall camp, it was our second practice, the night practice. A big brawl broke out. But I think after that brawl, that was the best practice I've ever seen in my time at Florida State. I don't know if you remember those moments.
I remember on the goal line because we were down the goal line and we were running ball, and both sides we always did goal line at the end of practice. Mm-hmm. It was one of them them hot days too. I mean, it was one of them. Yeah. It was humid. It was more humid than it was hot. It was 100 degrees, and we're going to goal line, and I said we're not tough enough. And they always said we're tough there, and then both sides were mouthing. I said, well, I'll just find out how tough you are. Let's just see if you're tough enough. And we lined up for 38 plays, and Wilder ran it all but two and broke two ribs on the second play. And if you remember, guys were trying to sub in, and guys wouldn't let people sub in. Mm-hmm. They were throwing people out. They wouldn't let people walk on the field. At first, I said, no, ones go again. Then they got mad at each other and started going at it, and it was and what was funny, though, the more physical it got and the harder they hit each other, the more they liked it. Mm-hmm. And they weren't hurting it. I mean, they tried to on the play. All right, I'm gonna light you up. Then they pick each other up and line up again. I knew that that's a great point. I knew then there was something in this team if we could get the right breaks. There was no doubt. And then in the fall camp, I remember that fight. I mean, and when our guys fought, now you wasn't breaking them up. No. There was some outright dogs out there now. But I always said this: they could transition that and turn around and go play football and not lose their mind.
Yep.
It's like some people, when they got to that point, players, well, he's done. You could get him mad and he was done. Yeah. That team, the madder it got, the better it played. You remember that?
Yeah, fast. That was, man, I'm talking, I haven't seen a practice ever as good as after that brawl, man. That was a crisp practice. And on both sides, like, even if one side beat the other one, like you would say, it wasn't bad ball because somebody messed up. It was like, all right, great defense, better offense type of situation.
I tell you that teams did. I always said this about ball. There's teams that win games because the other team is bad or it just continually makes mistakes, which is part of you take advantage of them. But eventually, I remember I always said this, don't feel too good about yourself. Listen, you when somebody else makes a mistake and you take advantage of it, that's your job. Don't feel bad about that. I mean, you got to know when to do that. But don't get so full of yourself and think you're better than you are because you're only making plays when that guy messes up. You got to learn to make plays. The offense got to learn to score when the defense does it perfect, and the defense has got to learn to make stops when the offense does it right. Yep. Because that's like you. I always said, like you said, good ball. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And that was what that team prided itself on. And remember, we used to do a cut up all right, this was a good play because you both did it right. This guy made a great play. Tip your hat and I'll go play. This is a good play because we made a mistake. We can't beat ourselves, but we have to learn to raise our game. If that team's making plays, what we always say, go higher. Go make the play when he's doing it right. And that team, I don't know if I've ever been around a team that everything I said, it did. And liked doing. I mean, that team truly not only liked to win, it liked to practice. It liked to lift weights. It liked to go run in the middle of the heat and run 26 110s. Yeah. You remember that? I mean, that team liked to work. It really did. And you couldn't be on that team if you didn't work. They ran that. Coaches didn't have to sort those guys out. The players sorted those. You couldn't be around those guys. Joyner and Telvin and Freeman and Jameis and Jernigan and Eddie Goldman and Christian Jones and Darby and P.J. Williams and Jalen. Jalen was like, I mean, Nick O'Leary, he didn't say, but man, and KB and Rashad and those linemen, Jose and Stork and Bobby, and I mean, all those guys, you couldn't be around them if you didn't work. They didn't want you around them.
Yeah.
And I used to tell people that, and they said, "Oh, you're exaggerating." I say, "Guys,
I'm
not.
I've seen it. It's real."
They would have, Coach. I know. I say, I sometimes those guys, this guy ain't working. Coach, don't worry about it. I got it. I mean, sometimes I would do it because I was easier on them than they were. Some of those guys, and that's hard to believe because I remember because Wilder got mad at me one time. I remember he was playing, and he went over on the sideline, and there was two guys coming at him, and he ran out of bounds. And Wilder, there was nobody built like Wilder was like. I mean, and I don't know if anybody wanted to mess with Wilder either. Wilder now was a grown man, and I said, "Wilder, what you got? Plastic muscles? You don't want to use them muscles?" He said, "All right." And everybody else, he started running over everybody every day after that. It was like a train. But I mean, those guys responded to those things. Mm-hmm. They liked it, and that was a very unique group of individuals that liked everything about ball.